In this recording, I will show you how to use Azure OpenAI models from outside the playground. This is a very common scenario where once you have experimented with a model inside the playground, you would like to create a POC or a MVP by calling that model from outside the playground. The ways you can use the model from outside the playground are if you go to learn.microsoft.com and OpenAI references, you can either use the SDKs provided for the language you want, or if you're not a programmer, you just want to call it from using a REST API, then you can use REST APIs as well. So this video will cover the REST API part. The REST APIs are basically simply your HTTP calls to your model, and there are different HTTP calls for different types of models. So for completions, the format is provided here, and that format takes certain type of message body. The description of the message body is also provided in the documentation. Similarly for embeddings and for chat completions, they have their own API format, and they also have their versions and the type of body they or request body they take. I will also show you how to send the API request. So the application I'm using is Postman. You can download a version of it on your local machine, or you can use the web version. I am using the web version. I will also show you how to create your profile and create the endpoints. And I also have another application I will use, which is to validate the JSON format. So when we send a REST API to a model, the information which needed by the model is sent in a JSON format, and sometimes there could be mistakes in the JSON format. So JSON lint can help you validate whether the body is in the right format or not. Let's start with the usual place, AI Studio. So go to ai.azure.com and log in with your Azure credentials. If you don't have a project created already, click before that. Go to you can go to build and or maybe not, just create a new project. And once you create a new project, give it a name, give it an AI resource. If you don't have an AI resource, create one. And if you follow the usual processes, you should have something like this visible to you, where you have a project and the resource. Once you have this created, go inside the project. Inside the project, first thing you need to do to use Azure OpenAI is to deploy models. So go to deployment, and in the deployment, I already have deployed 4 models. If you don't have any, click on create and select the model you want to create, confirm, and give it a name, and just click on deploy. Another thing you will notice when you click create is that the model tasks are different. So I'm covering 3 tasks in this video: the completion task, the embedding task, and the chat completion task. So you have different model for these different tasks. Once the models are deployed, let's say in the playground, what we would do. So in the playground, for example, I can go here and say I want to experiment with completions, and say what completions does is you provide it an information and it completes it with additional information. So if I say I want only 5 words in response, or 5 tokens in response, and I select my completions model or deployment, if I say something like once upon a time, and I ask it to generate something, because I've said 5 tokens, and the answer I get is there was a beautiful girl. If I want to use the same thing using a REST API, what I need to do is I need 2 pieces of information. If you click on view code, you will find there's an endpoint and there's a key. These are the 2 pieces of information you would need to send a request to this deployed model. So go to Postman. If you don't have an account there already created, once created, sign in with your credentials. Once you're signed in, you need to create a workspace. So click on workspaces, click on create a workspace, blank workspace, and click next. Give it a name, give it a purpose or summary, whether it's personal, for team, etc., and just click on create. Once you have created the workspace, you should see it in your workspace list. So I already have one called AI demo. Click on the workspace. Now, the first thing you do when you want to use Postman is create a collection. Think of collections as a group of APIs or REST APIs you want to club together. So I will click on create collection. I start with blank collection. I give it a name, say AI requests. So that's my collection. And in the collection, then you click on these three dots and say add request. So this is the request you'll be sending to the endpoint. Let me call it completion example, and that's the name of the request. Now, if I look into the documentation of completion, I need something like post and then a URL, which is the endpoint URL, and then I need to specify the message body, and these are different parameters that can go in the message body. So go to your Postman on the request, change the request type to post. You need to type the URL which was in the endpoint, and you also need the key. So the URL goes in the post. So let me just put it here. Yes. So I put the URL here, and then in the headers, you want to add the keys. So one of this key goes in a parameter called API-key. Again, it is mentioned, I believe, somewhere in the documentation. Let me see where it is. So I'm just taking an example here. So the API key, that's what I need to use. So again, I go to completion, I give it a name, API-key, and then you copy your key here. So I go to the endpoint again, I do a copy, and I will paste it here. And then in the body will be JSON. So click on raw, see this JSON is selected, and then what I want to do in the body is I want to do something like similar to what I've done here. I want to send some information, and I want to change some parameters, or set some parameters. Again, that information is provided in the documentation. So what I want to send is a prompt, and max tokens is what I want the model to return to me. So this is how the body will look like. So this is a JSON format, prompt and max tokens. If you want to be sure that it's working, it's the right structure, there's nothing syntactically wrong, go to JSON lint, copy this, say validate JSON. It says JSON is valid, so there's no structurally, nothing is syntactically wrong with this request. So I've got the post URL, I added my API key, I have the body. If I now do send, I should get a response which is 200 OK, as you see here. And if I had just to take it once because it wasn't showing me in new line. If I just go back, the choices is where I see the model has responded with the completion. So this is the completion model this time generated. Remember, this is a new request, so the model has this time created a new piece of information versus what was here. I also had set the temperature to 1, which means I had asked the model to be more creative. So that's how you use completion API. We can do the same for embeddings. Embeddings are a different topic in themselves, but think of embeddings as the model creating numbers for a word or a sentence. That's what embeddings are. They have a purpose. I'll not cover that though. So like we did previously, we click on Postman, we click on add request, and I give it a name. Let's call it embeddings example. Now, and again need the endpoints and the URL, etc. So let's see what the documentation is telling me here. So for embeddings, again, I need a URL and I have a body type. So you go to a URL, go to, I think this is, to be honest, this is one thing I could not find easily. So by looking at the completion example, I created an example for embeddings. So let me show you what it looks like. So it's the same structure where I have my resource and then I have embeddings here and then I have a version. So if you compare, it's very similar to what we used for completions. So that's the URL, and we select post, and again in the headers we need to provide API key. So let's call it API key here, and I will copy the API key this time by going to deployments, clicking on the embeddings model, and copy the key from here. So I have copied the key here now, and now comes the body part. In body, again, go to raw, it should be JSON, and the documentation says I can provide an input and a user. I don't really need user because it's not required, so I need to provide something called an input. Input is this word, sentence, string you want the embeddings for. So I would want, say, an input of something like this. So I want an input for this sentence: the food was delicious and the waiter ... Again, I can go to JSON validator to check that the JSON is valid. It says it is, which is nice. And then I click on send. Again, I should see 200. Okay. Oh, it says 4 not found, which is horrible. Okay, I think the extra space made a problem there. So I've removed the extra space and I get the embeddings. So these numbers are are what's called embeddings. There's a long list of numbers, but if you in search use cases, for example, you would see that a sentence, an embedding is created for a sentence or a word. This is what embeddings look like. Now we can do this same thing for chat as well. So again, go to the 3 dots in the request, in the collection, add request. Let's call it chat example. We'll follow the same pattern, just that the URL and the URL and the body type will be different. So let's look at chat. We go to playground. Let's change the mode to chat, and the model is, say, GPT-4. And so chat is interesting, and I'll cover how chat, even though OpenAI models are stateless, how chat gives you perception as if they remember a previous conversation. So let me start this chat here in the playground by saying something like, just a second. Yeah. Just copying pasting from something I created previously. So yeah, something like this. Hi, my name is Manu. How are you? And it will give me a response. Hopefully. Slowly. It does. So it says, yeah, hello, Manu. And it knows my name because in the prompt I had told it that my name is Manu. Now, if I now ask it, what is my name? Your name is Manu. Oh, so it gives a feeling as if the model remembers or is storing some information. That is not the case. So we will also kind of decode how this perception of remembrance comes in. So before we do that, I need information about this model. Again, endpoints and API key. So go to chatbot. The Postman post. I need the URL. So let me copy the URL here. Again, you can copy the URL from here, and this is the URL for chat completion. So you will see chat and then completions when you have this URL. In the headers, again, we will need API key, and that comes from here. And the body structure looks a bit complex, but you will get a hang of it once you use it a couple of times. So in the body, you have messages. This is where the previously exchanged messages are stored. And then roles can be of different type. They can be system, which sets the persona of the chatbot. User means what user is asking, and assistant means the reply from the model. So using this information, I can create a body like this. So if you go to raw again, JSON, and this is the body, so matching it with the documentation, there is messages. Messages have role and content, and role can be one of these values, and content is the text you want the model to use. So that's what I've done. In the messages, I have set a role, that is the persona. The role is system and persona is you're an assistant. And then the user is asking, hi, my name is Manu, how are you? I think I've done everything. If I click send, I should see 200. Okay, let me make sure there's no space, though there isn't any. If I click send, please give me 200. Wonderful. So the model responded with 200, and the response is, hello Manu, I am an AI assistant, and don't have feeling, etc., etc. Now, interesting bit. Now, if I ask it the next question, which is, what is my name? So I'll just change this to, what is my name? I've not added any of the information. That's all I've sent. And if I send again the request, so it does not remember my name this time. It says, I don't have information about your personal data. So clearly the model does not remember what it was told in the past. So to create that perception of history, what I need to do is I need to include the previous messages in the request. So I do that by providing the history. So for example, when I had set up the persona of the model, that you were a helpful assistant, then I asked it what is that. I told it my name is Manu, and I asked how it's doing. I got an answer, but in the same request, I'm also sending what is my name. So it is now using this content to figure out my name is Manu. So if I now click send, I get an answer that your name is Manu. So I hope you can see how the models are stateless, but using this application technique of providing history and then using that history to create responses in context of current question, the model is able to show as if it remembers the previous conversation. That's all I wanted to show. Thank you so very much for watching.